right, so it's now live.
Great.
All right. 1 second. Hello, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of our eClub session. Today with us, we have Aaron Newman, who is an artist, designer, and photographer who designs custom-built Lego models, sculpture, and kits. Most recently, he competed in Fox's new show, Lego Masters. Today, he will be doing a Lego building tutorial.
Hi there. Nice to have all of you joining us. So today I'm going to show you just a little bit of build guide for a dragon design that I completed recently. So here let's see if I can pan this down a little bit so we can see my hands a bit more. Anyhow, can I share screen here, Agha? Let me see if I can. Here, I've got just a quick look. This is what the finished dragon is going to look like for those of you who wanted to see. Anyhow, first thing I'm going to want to do, of course, is build the body. Now, when I'm working on the body, I like to add a little bit of extra dimension here on the bottom using some inverted slope pieces like this, right? That's going to give me a nice rounded shape on the bottom of my dragon. The other thing you may notice me starting to do is using some bracket pieces like these. If you remember from Lego Masters, we talked about studs not on top on the show, which means building out in different directions than just straight up and down. Doing that really enables us to add some extra dimension to our creation. I'm sorry that I'm speeding through a little bit here, but I do want to be able to talk through some of the design choices once this is reassembled here. Now, I'm also using some rounded slopes like this. These are really good parts for giving us organic shaping to our creatures. All righty. And I'm also just starting to think about different joints that I'm going to need on the dragon. Like I'm leaving a place here for the neck attachment. This is going to go to the rest of the body. We have our arms and what are going to be our wing attachments as well. So, as I'm building here, another thing you're going to see me do very soon is use some snot technique to lock together a section of the dragon. Right now, these are the wing joints, but they can come off pretty easily. And I want to make sure those are really stable to be able to hold the dragon's body together. And, as I'm posing the wings, I don't want them to flop off. So I'm actually using some of these curved slope pieces here to lock together the torso using those snot attachments I have on the side. I'm doing that on both sides here. That gives us a really nice and much stronger body. This is a technique that's also used very often in Lego kits, since they want those to be very durable for people who are playing with them. So I've got a front portion of the body. Back portion of the body is built very similarly, as you can see. However, some differences include that I've got a bit more of a taper here towards the back. Obviously, I didn't need to include wing joints. No balls there for the wings. I'm going to move this up a little bit so I can, maybe you all want to see my face a little bit too. We have a little bit more of a taper back here and tapering in this way. You may also notice I'm starting to build in some motifs to the dragon, such as these bright yellow spines, which are going to continue throughout the whole beast and really give it a sense of unity, okay? Just want to highlight here, a joint that I've already started to use is a click joint, which has kind of a stepped motion like this. Can move in a couple of different directions, but it's also very sturdy. So when I move something with the click joint, it'll actually stay where I leave it, and it can hold a fair amount of weight. So I really like to use that for the middle of the creature as well. You can already see I've got attachments for my legs too. Now, when thinking about the limbs, I want to make them really strong enough to hold the dragon. So there's kind of two ways I could be doing this, one of which is the one that I've actually done here, which is basically building the limbs to be already at a fixed angle. I could make them posable, but it's better for holding weight and supporting weight if the angle of the elbow, for instance, is already locked. So I'm going to show you now how I may have built an arm, for instance, the front arm. I can start out with one of these pieces here. This is a wedge plate shaped like a triangle, just to give me a little bit of extra bulk and extra shaping rather than just using a flat piece. You may notice as well, I've just attached a socket, which is really good for holding on some, joints. I showed you the click joint before, but we also on this dragon are going to be using a lot of ball and socket pieces. So that's made up of two parts. We have a ball and a socket. They click together, give you a really good degree of mobility. 360-degree mobility, excellent for creatures such as dragons or people, because in our own human bodies, we actually have some balls and sockets we use every day here in our shoulders, in our hips, and our eyeballs, our balls in sockets as well, to get that extra degree of mobility and organic shape. Really, ball and socket is a great way to go. So back to my construction here. I'm going to start building in a right angle to the build right here. This is going to be a fixed right angle, and I have it reinforced on the underside using one of these inverted slopes. I'll attach another ball, or this time a ball, the other one a socket. This is going to be where my wrist attachment is. And I'll start to reinforce, add some extra plates, slopes, brackets, you name it, whatever it takes to make this sturdy. That's something that I really try to do a lot when I'm building. Make sure the thing is strong enough to, hold up to a degree of play, really. I want it to be something that people can play around with. So I can make one arm, I can make two arms. And I'll attach those, one on each side of the body like so. Now, the back legs are built quite similarly to the front legs in terms of the rigid joint structure that I've got, but instead of using sort of a single angle, I've got them at a bit of a compound angle here. So I've got two joints, one here and one here, just to give it a little bit more of a predatory look. But again, these are built in place, these right angles. This is not a flexible joint here. It's just built on for aesthetics. I can attach those, say, here on the back of the dragon, like so. The foot design is pretty simple. I'm using a socket piece and a bracket to create the footprint. I'll use some claws on the front here, add a little bit of cladding using a panel and a little tile. And I actually will make 4 different feet, or 4 of the same foot, I should say, and attach them, one onto each of the limbs. Repetition is something I really like to lean on when I'm building a creature, just to make it easier to reconstruct, for instance. So you may notice all 4 feet are the same, and I can actually build 2 neck/tail segments that are identical to each other. Aside from the direction of the spikes, these look exactly the same. And I would put one here on the front and one here on the back. You can see, again, starting to build in that repeating pattern with the spines. You may notice as well another joint we haven't really touched on yet, which is the larger ball and socket joint. Works just like the small ones that I highlighted before, but it's got a little bit more clutch power, little extra oomph to give it that ability to hold up more weight, to make it a little bit stronger. So when you want to hold up something longer or hold up something with more weight to it, I recommend going to a bigger ball and socket. And if that even isn't enough, then that's when you can use that click joint that I showed off first. Now, same thing again. I can repeat my segments, putting one on the front, one on the back. These ones are a little bit smaller, just starting to hone in on my design. If I want to make the tail a bit longer, I might take some of these double-sided ball and socket parts, dress them up with some spines and some you know, underbelly coloring and things like that. I can attach those right here in the back of the tail. For the end of the tail, I love to use a piece like this with that built-in curve. Gives you the extra degree of flexibility. Well, not flexibility, I should say, but a sense of life, really. That's something that I think is important when you're building a creature, is to build it to look lively. Lego as a medium is generally pretty rectilinear. You know, it's a lot of squares and rectangles and right angles. So when there's a part like this that's a little bit curvy, it's nice to take advantage of that and just lean on that to give your creature a little bit more of an organic shape. So I attached a spike on one end and another ball and socket on the other. Finally, gives me a nice completed tail. And as you can see, the ball and socket joints that I worked in give me a great degree of flexibility, movement, and liveliness in that tail. So let's move on to the head. The head design that I've got is right here. I can show that off a bit here. Lots of different spikes and spines to give it that threatening appearance. Got some horns on the back, got a little horn on the bottom to complete the crest. Even this little rhinoceros style horn here on the front. To make that horn stick in, I'm using, I've got to take this out. Oops. There we go. One of these modified plates with some holes in it, right? This part here, when attached onto the nose, and cover it up with a forehead, but I still have one of those holes exposed, which allows me to add decoration like that nose spike. And this is the same kind of technique I'm using to attach the body spikes. I'm using a stud that has a hole in it. These are some relatively newer pieces that I find extremely useful for really for everything. They have a ton of uses, but on the dragon, they're really good for attaching spikes facing straight up rather than having to rely on a more complex or bulkier solution. So as I attach the tail on the back of the dragon, I can click that on here to the base of the neck, which gives me the front of the dragon. Again, I can lean on the ball and socket to give myself that extra degree of flexibility, liveliness, character. Because from my experience, characters and creatures are more interesting if they can move and pose like they would be in real life. However, I'd like to point out again, the limbs, these joints are fixed, but I've chosen them, the positions I should say, in a really dynamic and active position. I wouldn't want to just have straight legs. Those may not be quite as interesting. The last thing I want to show you, of course, on this dragon is a wing. The wing design is using some different joints than ones we've used before, because rather than having to bend in a bunch of different directions, right, we want to just have pivoting motion for some of these joints. Here at the base, or not the base of the wing, the base of the wing is a ball joint. I should clarify that. But in the middle of the wing, I'm using some of these specialized click hinging joints, which can step around and pivot in just one plane of motion rather than a bunch of different 360-degree planes of motion. I also am using some pivoting Technic joints here for the spars of the wing that can attach and flex like so. One other thing you may notice is that the inside part of the wing can pivot one more direction. The reason I've included that joint is so that when I fold the wing up like this, I can start to bend these in and layer them on top of each other slightly like that, rather than having to leave it fully extended and open, and that doesn't look quite as concealed. So I want to have that ability to sort of layer on like that. And I've also used, you actually may have this part, it's a little sink tap piece, which I'm using as the connecting joint for my little finger on the end of the wing, right? This part here also, I'm using a ball joint again, but it's a slightly different part. Clips into any regular socket and gives it even extra friction. There's a rubberized bit in the middle here that provides extra grip, even more so than a ball and socket would normally have, to make that joint really strong. So 2 wings on my dragon now, as you can see. Got that folding ability. And this is a completed dragon. Lots of liveliness, lots of character in it, like I said, or that's what I was going for at least. I've included a saddle for a minifigure to sit in, because of course, what fun is a dragon if there's not someone to ride it? And I'm really proud of the color choices on the dragon too, which are pretty classic, but I do like how the yellow spines are really popping against this red and the brown of the rest of the dragon, which of course I've got a darker color on the belly and a brighter color on the top. Layering color like that is another way that I really like to give unity to creatures like this, to make them seem like a cohesive and complete and realistic animal. It makes sense that the body has a sort of unity of color within it, right? The wings, of course, have that kind of dark color. And if I want to, I can unfold them, give this dragon a really big, cool wingspan like this, so it can fly around and swoop around. So I think we have a couple more minutes. Agha, are there any questions that have been coming through on YouTube or anywhere else?
No, there have not been any questions that have come up.
Okay. After watching my dragon tutorial, do you have any questions you'd like to ask about it?
Honestly, I don't. I think it's really cool though, and all the processes and everything that really goes behind it is really, really interesting to see. It's not
Thank
just,
you.
putting a bunch of stuff together. It's actually like thinking more.
Yeah,
about it.
absolutely. I would definitely say that. I mean, to make something out of Lego, to make any kind of art, it takes a degree of thought, and for me, I really like to give a lot of consideration to the colors that I'm using, the shapes I'm pursuing, generally the silhouette of what I'm building. I want that to be very distinctive and signature, really, so that the model stands out and has a really cool presence. And one of the ways that I think it's important, especially for a creature, to achieve that silhouette is using joints. So just to review, I think I should probably talk about the kind of joints that I use one more time. Here in the middle of the dragon is a click ball joint, really nice and strong. Base of the tail, base of the head, I'm using those large scale ball joints. Then I'm also using smaller ball joints all here along the tail, at the hips, the shoulders, the ankles, right? Base of the head. I have those click joints here at the wing, pivoting joints, using Technic pieces here for the spars of the wing, not just in moving this way, but also being able to fold in so that I can really compress the wings as much as possible and make them fold up in a really convincing or dynamic way. So yeah, this model was a lot of fun to design. I really love building creatures, as you can probably tell. It's one of my favorite things to make out of Lego, because I think it's a really cool challenge to have to take these static plastic bricks and turn them towards something that's got some life in it, that's got a spark, a spark of being. That's really cool, and one of the more challenging things to do with Lego, which is why I enjoy it so much. Yeah, I think that's about all I have to say about this here dragon. But I have been so grateful to see all the other creations that people have done in the wake of Lego Masters, inspired as they are by the show. And I hope that you always keep creating, keep building, and stay inspired.
Great. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate everything.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Hope you all have a great night. And thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much.